One of my favorite movies from the 90s is a movie called Heat, where Al Pacino is a homicide detective. And he talks about how he needs the pain and the death and the awfulness of the street because it keeps him sharp. I think part of the reason it resonates so much with me is as a professional who wants to win, I worry about losing my edge if I quiet the voice.
I've heard that many times before. It could be losing your edge, but it's also like, I want to have fun. Like, I want to live on the edge of life and have high highs. And they're worried about just sort of like petering out. It really is just about choice and being able to say, I want, like, I'm inviting Miles, the hard driving striver now because I'm moving into a deposition or court or, you know, whatever on the bicycle. But then in other parts of your life, you can invite in a different you. So it's like not even quieting the mind. It's getting to know your mind and different voices and sort of inviting the one that's going to serve you best so you can really make that best next move, like in the immediate sense.
Howdy, and welcome to the show. Cooper's Code focuses on legal issues and notable practitioners, distilling wisdom so we can all achieve the best results for our clients. I'm Miles Cooper, and I'm very excited for this conversation with Jessica Samples. Jessica is a San Francisco-based mindfulness teacher, coach, and group facilitator, and the founder of CoCreate Calm. She helps individuals, groups, and teams navigate demanding lives with greater steadiness, self-awareness, and intention. Jessica is a certified mindfulness teacher at the professional level, and her work is grounded in a simple but powerful conviction that we were never meant to carry life's challenges alone. In our conversation, we discuss the differences between mindfulness and meditation and examine how these tools can help busy professionals expand their windows of tolerance. Another way of putting this, my way, is moving beyond lizard brain reactivity to cognitive response. As someone who both respects meditation as a tool and has had challenges embracing it, I put Jessica through all my objections and found her answers incredibly insightful. The conversation is perfect for those with busy minds who want a little more calm without a prescription. So please welcome Jessica and enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Happy to be here.
Can you start a little bit with who you are and what brought you to what you do?
Yeah. I work in the field of mindfulness, and I have a private practice based in San Francisco, and I work with people one-on-one in small groups and within organizations to help make a bridge between busy, full daily life and the benefits of mindfulness practice.
And before we go down the path of what that might look like to folks, can you help us understand a little bit about how you found yourself in this space?
When I was a teenager, my mother shared something about her earlier life and that she meditated for a period at a meditation center. And that stuck in my mind. I did not know her to be a meditator. I never saw her meditate. I don't think there wasn't evidence that she was meditating during my childhood. But it felt like romantic and magical. And so I tried in my bedroom. I was probably 17 to meditate. And I think I was just standing in the middle of my childhood bedroom and went for about 2.5 seconds.
So you just closed your eyes and stood there.
I was like, stop my mind, stop thinking, be calm, be clear. And it didn't work. And after about 2.5 seconds, I said, I can't do that. That is not for me. My brain doesn't meditate. And then I blinked and I was 30 and I was working with a therapist as her patient. And she mentioned to me something about my anxiety. And I've never heard that word in relation to me before. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, I don't have anxiety. I was really confused. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I really thought everyone sort of woke up in the morning with their eyes like wide open, heart pounding, like sense of stress in the body, just like ready to take on the day and whatever came. So she then suggested mindfulness or meditation. I said, I tried that, doesn't work. She said, try it again. Was able to start a practice with supports and then was working with first generation college students around college success. And was seeing the same busy mind, struggling anxiety in their lives. And as part of the puzzle that I was figuring out at this nonprofit with a team of people, I said that this practice has been so meaningful for me. I'm going to find a way to bring it to them. And I found a curriculum out of Duke University called Koru at the time. It was evidence-based, created for college-aged adults, and I got trained. And I started bringing it to my students and my colleagues, and it became the favorite part of the day, my favorite day of the week. And it wasn't in my job description. But I've had to find a way to make it how I spend my days. And now I do.
So you mentioned Koru, is it Koru?
It's Koru, and they've changed their name to MIEA.
Okay. I have seen that. And MIEA is M-E...
It's MIEA, and it stands for the Mindfulness Institute for Emerging Adults or Adulthood, which is a developmental range from about 18 to 30. Their curriculum and work, in my experience, is fantastic. I'm one of their certified longtime teachers, and it is applicable to populations outside of that. And I don't know if I said, but it's an evidence-based curriculum to support reduction in stress and to grow self-compassion, a little more spaciousness.
This podcast generally focuses on the law and legal professionals. Why would we be talking about stress on a show like this?
Yeah, stress or busy mind.
Yes.
I mean, the reason why we're here in part is because I found myself working with a lot of lawyers in my practice. I didn't know they were lawyers when they came, but as we got to know each other in small groups and one-on-one, they would share that they share about their lives and their works. And I saw an especially sharp, active mind, planning for all the scenarios and what happens next. And it seemed to be extra tricky to let that go and to switch into observing mind. And so it became a really fun challenge to make mindfulness more accessible for really busy minds and lives and days that felt pressurized.
You used a couple of phrases there, and observing mind versus busy mind. Can you unpack that a little bit?
As you are looking at me, you look like you're present, like you're with me. If I imagined thought bubbles above your head, and no offense, maybe you are here 100%. But when I'm working with people, sometimes they'll be drafting emails. Their intention will be here. They'll be drafting emails. They might be thinking about what's for dinner, what's in the fridge, and they're looking present. Their intention is to be present. They might be replaying a scene from 10 years ago and wishing they would have said this and how life would, just going down the whole path. And then people are judging their thoughts. So that's an example of thinking mind. It's present all the time in many of us. Observing mind is in part a mystery, but it's the part of you that can watch thinking mind. So I sometimes invite people to imagine their thoughts. This is in the middle of a practice, but imagine their thoughts being broadcast on a movie screen. No worries, you're the only one in the theater. It's totally private. But if you watched what your mind produced, it's shocking. I experience it myself when I'm on silent retreat, which I do every summer. But it's that part of you that's watching, and you can watch from a distance, and mindfulness practice can help support growing that distance. So watching the activity of the mind almost without believing it 100%.
So I think part of why I find this personally interesting is, like many strivers, constantly working to improve, be better, compete. I find that one of the things that drives me is not always wanting to win, but that voice in my head that is telling me that I'm less than. And it sounds like that is not unusual with the people that you are working with. Those are statements instead of questions. And so I guess my question related to that is how does this practice help quiet that voice that follows you around telling you that you didn't do this, or you haven't done that, or as you said, I recognized you talked about thought bubbles. While I think of myself as being very present when I'm doing a podcast, I'm also thinking about where am I going next with a question to make sure that it is still interesting for the listener. So no matter how present I think I am, I'm still thinking about what's coming next, not being in the moment. That's a lead into if somebody goes down this path, within 5 minutes, is the problem cured, or
For the rest of the life.
Yes, that's what we're looking for here.
Yeah. I think I want to start by sharing one of the main ways I think about mindfulness is through Dan Siegel's idea of the window of tolerance. It's basically the idea that there is a zone where we can think clearly, stay connected. When life happens, we can respond instead of just react. But what happens is that many times a day, for sure a week, for a lifetime, we get pushed out of that window of tolerance. And when we do, we feel overwhelmed. We can have a scattered mind, feel anxious. Some of us shut down when we get pushed out of our window, or we can get aggressive or irritable. Mindfulness helps this in a few different ways. One is it helps us notice when we're getting out of our window sooner and more often. And I'm going to relate it back to what you were sharing. The next way is that it helps us build like a regulation toolkit so you can come back into your window quicker. And then mindfulness practice over time can actually help us grow our window. So more of life can happen and we can, tolerate it really. So how this relates to your question is like step one is we have to realize that these voices are present to begin with. So it could be noticing that you're out of your window and it's like an anxiousness or pressure in your chest or a feeling of worry or even like forward movement. I'm not trying to ever change people's relationships to their inner voices or selves, just trying to bring in some space so that it's in choice. So you can tap into this part of you that pushes you forward and propels you and is part of your success, but by choice. So first you grow the awareness, which is a skill of what's happening in your body, feelings, and then over time you can work with it. So when I work with someone, we're spending time like growing the skill of connecting to the body, connecting to feelings, and then noticing what's happening in the mind and habits of mind. And sometimes that's enough, and practice tools are enough to help someone come back into their window and practice there. Some of us have complicated histories and sticky situations that are replaying constantly. And so sometimes, if that makes sense, we can bring in a trauma-sensitive internal family systems or parts work lens to actually engage and work with that part of you that is pushing. And pushing is great, but again, by choice and maybe with a less harsh voice. Over time, so many of us who have hit certain markers of success in our life have gotten there with such a hard driving inner voice. And there's a point in life where it might not be serving us anymore. And so this is a beautiful invitation to sort of recast that relationship.
The first thing that comes to mind is one of my favorite movies from the 90s is a movie called Heat, where Al Pacino is a homicide detective. And he talks about how he needs the pain and the death and the awfulness of the street because it keeps him sharp. I think part of the reason it resonates so much with me is as a professional who wants to win, I worry about losing my edge if I quiet the voice.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. And I hear that, I've heard that many times before. It could be losing your edge, but it's also like, I want to have fun. Like I want to live on the edge of life and have high highs. And they're worried about just sort of like petering out. And, let me tell you from someone who has a ton of practice and training. And every summer I go on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. I am so far away from having a calm, boring inner life, let alone outer life. You're still you. You will still be you. It really is just about choice and being able to say, I want, like I'm inviting Miles, the hard driving striver now because I'm moving into a deposition or court or, whatever on the bicycle. But then in other parts of your life, you can invite in a different you. So it's like not even quieting the mind. It's getting to know your mind and different voices and sort of inviting the one that's going to serve you best. So you can really make that best next move, like in the immediate sense.
The logical question for me there is, how does that work? So what we're having a conversation now.
Yeah.
You've talked about how you work with individuals and entities to help people on this path.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be somebody who had that broader window, that range, what path do I go down with you or someone like you to reach that? Yeah,
there are so many different paths. What I'd like to do is just invite you right here into a short practice. And I'll ask a question after. But if you're part of our listening audience, you can choose to follow along. If you're driving or doing something that needs your full attention, you can just listen. Don't do what I'm inviting you to do, and maybe you can come back later to practice. But I mean, here we are in the middle of a conversation. I want to invite you, Miles, to kind of sit back in your chair, and we can just bring an open awareness to the places in the body where we often hold tension. And eyes open or closed, there's no one right way to do this. But sometimes I close my eyes even in guiding because it helps me, cutting the visual stimulus helps me tune into my experience. So just bringing your awareness to your jaw right now and noticing if clenching is happening.
I feel like you must be inside my head. That was the first spot.
And so just inviting a slight softening, not needing to like nail this part. Just can you soften 1% more the jaw, the muscles around the jaws? Maybe you feel the teeth separate a little bit or the bottom jaw hanging down a little bit. And then bringing your awareness to your shoulders. Are they up by your ears? Can you soften and release and relax them just a little bit more? And then bringing your awareness down to the belly. So many of us are clenchers for good reason. But for right now, can you imagine softening the belly? If it feels comfortable enough to do so, safe enough to do so. And then take a few breaths and see if you can feel your belly expand on the inhale. And then maybe feel some deflation on the exhale. And the last part of this micro practice is feeling your feet flat on the ground. If you're sitting in your leg tucker, just doing you. But if you are with your feet flat, like, can you feel that light pressure? You can even like move side to side a little bit to feel that contact being made. Then we'll close that micro practice. And Miles, I'll invite you to open your eyes. And then a question that I often ask is, what was that like and what did you notice?
It felt like an extraction of poison. I mean, that sounds more extreme than I intended, but I was in court this morning. I don't normally show up in a suit for the recordings, for those of who are listening, I'm wearing a suit today. And I definitely was more clenched and tight, more in battle mode than I normally am when I'm sitting down to one of these sessions. And it truly felt like you just like let the open up a valve and just kind of had stuff bleed out.
And so that was really short. I don't know, 45 seconds, 2 minutes, something like that. Short. So the first step is really just checking in and noticing the body and the way that it protects itself. With the poison extraction, I imagine you'd be in more choice now if a difficult conversation came your way, or a kid with needs, or something else. You would have maybe you came more into your window. We were talking about the window of tolerance. So step one is just around awareness, and there are all kinds of practices and apps you can do to sort of learn and grow that skill. And then if you have this intention and you try some of those like easy ways, you might notice you turn it off before it finishes, or it's like too annoying, or you have this intention, but you're never actually making contact with this kind of a practice. That's when you might want to reach out to like a real life human and be in conversation around what is coming up for you and the ways they could help. And then finding a person whose voice and vibe and way resonated with you. Yeah.
All of what you said, I think, resonates with me. And part of the reason I'm saying some of these things is because I suspect that some of the things that I am dealing with are things that a lot of our listeners, busy professionals, parents, are also dealing with. So I know, for example, yoga is one of the things that helps me greatly. You're just stretching out and being calm and being focused. It is the first thing I give up on when my life gets busy, rather than other things. And similar with a meditation practice and being direct with my experiences with meditation, I've gone down the path on a number of occasions. I find that seated meditation is a challenge for me. I've got a very busy mind. And when I've sought to quiet that busy mind, I get into lots of self-judgment. And while I might sustain a practice for a week or a few weeks, that judgment leads to the point of, I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. Even recognizing what that 45 seconds that you just went through with me is, how beneficial it is, I will find ways to not do that. I'm sure I'm not the first person who has said a variant of that to you. Can you help us understand how to move beyond that phase?
Well, I mean, I say that to myself sometimes.
Okay.
I do not sit on a cushion every day. I did today a little bit because I was going to be here, not because I wanted to say that I did it, but I was noticing I was having some anxiety and stress. And so I went into my toolkit, and guess what? Sitting on my cushion, I have a great setup, beautiful. I like to stay there. I put 15 minutes on my bell. I couldn't do the 15 minutes because I was starting to imagine this conversation now. And so I have a large toolkit. So I stood up and I started doing other things. I did a version of what you just did, relaxing your clenched spots. So the first thing is, the cushion isn't the goal. The extraction of poison or the settling, getting back in your window of tolerance, that's the goal. And I'm thinking about yoga and what you would have to do with the very formal, beautiful, fancy outfit you're wearing. Like, it's not just the time in yoga practice. You would have to change your clothes. Like, it just adds so much. But if you have a toolkit of mindfulness practices, you could, wherever you are, bring it in. There are points in all of our days, whether it's getting young children or teenage children out the door, where I have changed being at the door frustrated to, okay, this is a 2-minute delay that I'm going to get something out of it. And I will sit there, I will declench, and I will do a few deeper belly breaths. And so I got some practice in, and even though my work is what it is, I do not feel bad or shame about not sitting on the cushion because of weaving in the ways of micro practice throughout the day.
You mentioned having a broad toolkit. And part of the reason I'm returning to this is I've heard some people talk about how while they like meditation, a seated meditation is just not right fit for them. And I know that there are people who respond to poison oak, and there are people who genetically don't respond to poison oak. In your experience, when someone says something like that, are there people who are just kind of wired that way, where, sitting on a cushion is not right fit for them, and there are other tools that are better for them? Or is that, I don't want to call it a cop-out, but is that just not a fair statement?
Yeah. So in my perspective and experience, there's more to that sentence. It's that sitting on a cushion or in a chair or even lying down isn't right for them right now.
Okay.
So different seasons of life, different, just where you are. There's such a variety of ways that you can meditate. And maybe it's important to separate the distinction between, or make a distinction between mindfulness and meditation. So when I think about mindfulness, it's about being present to whatever's happening right now, with some attitude of like kindness and curiosity. And it's really through the senses, because that's like the only real thing that's happening now for either of us or for anyone listening. It's what they're seeing, it's what they're hearing. If you have access to sight, it's sensation in the body, like the feel of air on your skin. And you can be mindful doing anything. Like you can be doing the dishes and feeling the warmth of the water, smelling the aroma of the soap, like seeing the bubble and the shiny fork you're washing, feeling the texture of the sponge. So you're practicing mindfulness while you're doing the dishes. Maybe that's enough for this month. And not the whole sink of dishes, but a few things, just practicing little by little. Meditation is more like going to the gym. It's a finite period of time that you are practicing or doing reps or whatever it is. So it could be seated meditation. You could be doing walking meditation. And as I have been taught and brought in, there's not a hierarchy of one being better than the other. It's just a timed period where you have one anchor that you're coming back to, like an anchor of meditation, or a place where you're going to rest your awareness. And then for all of us, the mind is going to take us to wherever. And then when we realize that the mind has wandered away from our anchor in meditation, then we gently bring it back. So like I meditate so that I can grow my mindfulness muscle and have a more mindful life.
I can't let your comment about paying attention to the soapy dishes pass without thinking of Thich Nhat Hanh's comment about when you're doing dishes, you should only be doing dishes, which I will tell you has been one of my biggest, when I think about mindfulness and other pieces. When I'm doing dishes, that's some of the best time for me to strategize on cases. Yeah. So, and so when I hear something like that on the mindfulness side, I sometimes, again, get into self-judgment and self-doubt on whether this is right path for me. At the same time, when you talk about the feel of the air on your skin, the being present, there are certain things that I think about, some of my joys of bike being outside, where you have that presence of feeling all the feels that you don't when you have that active mind. So again, that's a monologue, not a question.
I heard a question.
Okay.
I think the most instructive word in there was should. So if doing dishes is the place where you strategize and are doing creative work, even if we were working together, I would not touch that. The idea is that we look at your life, look at your goals, or pain points, and then we would identify together, or really I would draw out of you the places where you could bring practice in. So there's no one right way. There's no way that according to me, I speak for myself. There's no one way that Miles should meditate to be a good meditator and nail meditation, be able to go on a retreat and all of that. Life is so complicated and our lives are so different that it's just about finding what's going to be right for you and trying things and then saying it's not right and bringing in more possibilities, experimenting. But over time, lives shift. And that's why, that is why I'm here.
The mindfulness versus meditation is an interesting breakdown. And in that regard, if one is seeking to be more present, is it an either or? Is it a both and? How do those two, what's the interplay between the two?
Yeah. When I meditate or go on a silent meditation retreat, which is like meditating hard all the time from the bell to going to sleep, I am taking it as training. I'm in a marathon that is a training situation, so that I can live more moments in my regular daily life, in traffic, parenting a teenager and others, in difficult conversations, relationship, in the world that we're all living in. I'm training in meditation so that my daily life can be more of choice and with more ease. You don't have to, should. It's really just fucking start somewhere. See if you listeners, if you experience some sort of softening or releasing or relaxing in that practice that we did earlier in the conversation, there's something here for you. And so following that thread, being curious, taking a step, listening to some app or YouTube, reaching out to me, even for a conversation, there's so many resources available.
Thank you for listening. And please join us next week as we continue this conversation. For those of you who are listening and have found this helpful, I'd ask that you share this episode with a friend. Likewise, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, please give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you have any comments or feedback, please reach out at podcast@coopers.law. And for all of you doing justice out there, happy hunting.